Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Healing Outside the Box. My name is Jean Tiberio, and I'm a nutritionist and a wellness coach. Today, I'm bringing you episode 160, and I'm calling it Possible Alternative Treatments for Alzheimer's Disease, Part 3. In Part 1 on January 10th, I gave you an overall picture of what we're dealing with, which is, among other things, that there are basically two forms of Alzheimer's disease. The first form has a genetic link and is the less common form. A defect in the ApoE4 gene is responsible. The one thing I forgot to mention in Part 1 is that the number 4 is important. ApoE2 and 3 do not increase your risk of getting Alzheimer's. ApoE stands for apolipoprotein E, and this substance is an important regulator of cholesterol and triglyceride levels in your blood. It's involved in fat transport and also repairs injury in your brain. This lipoprotein is part of a complex that forms a ball called lipoprotein fractions. I'm sure you've heard of HDL, LDL, and so forth, and ApoE is one of the substances in this ball of fat. But it's not all bad. As you know, HDL is called the good fraction because part of its job is to transport cholesterol to your liver to be destroyed. Anyway, the good news is that if you have this defect in your ApoE4 gene, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get Alzheimer's disease. It's not like Huntington's that way. The second form of Alzheimer's is lifestyle related. It may resemble cardiovascular disease and cancer in that there are multiple and similar risk factors for all three. Right now, there's a substantial body of evidence that strongly connects Alzheimer's disease with clogged arteries. And clogged arteries are preventable and fixable with diet. So that was Part 1, which is episode 158. In Part 2, I reviewed food and non-food related risk factors. There's the whole clogged artery thing, but also microbes of various kinds. Stress and inflammation could be contributing risk factors. The primary set of risk factors, though, are similar to cardiovascular disease and diabetes. I can't say that enough, apparently. Which brings us to Part 3. And that is, what can we do to control or even prevent Alzheimer's disease? By the way, I'm going to run out of time, so I'll go over the food-related things and get to the non-food-related things next week. Let's start off by saying Alzheimer's disease is not an inevitable part of aging. Can I get an amen to that? Amen! Well, apparently I can. Now, because we're all stable geniuses, we know now that Alzheimer's disease is associated with clogged arteries. How would you go about fixing clogged arteries? Well, with the Mediterranean diet, of course, along with exercise, meditation, weight control, etc. But first, let's talk about the genetics piece of this puzzle and then move on. Here's the breaking news. Having an abnormal ApoE4 gene does not necessarily mean that you'll get Alzheimer's disease. It's not a 100% or zero thing. Did I just say that? Oh my goodness. Uh-oh, that ain't good. But I'll probably repeat it again because it's worth noting. As they say in the diabetes biz, what you inherit is a tendency to get the disease. Secondly, scientists now believe that you can change your gene expression. And we do that by fixing our lifestyle factors. Can I get an amen to that? Amen! I know, I'm annoying you. So let's look on the horizon for possible ways we can control or even prevent this disease. First off, drugs alone just aren't working. Dr. Mark Hyman was mentioning this in a recent webinar, and he said that a researcher was paid to find ways to stop the disease. Very well, but the people that were paying him didn't want him to put together many risk factors in one study because then we wouldn't know which one caused the disease. The truth is that we need to look at all of these lifestyle factors put together because we just don't have 100 years to sit around looking at one risk factor at a time. And here's a note from almost all of the functional medicine people in this field. Prevention is a whole lot better than treating this disease. Functional medical people recommend that doctors encourage their patients to consider preventative lifestyle factors as a whole. In other words, not one at a time. Now, what does this prevention look like? Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but a rule of thumb would be to do what you need to do to prevent cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And cardiovascular disease is the stiff artery disease because it also affects the arteries of your neck and brain. I'm not going to bury the lead here. The Mediterranean diet, which is higher in vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, seeds, and lower in meats and dairy products, has been associated with slower cognitive decline and a lower risk of Alzheimer's. So let's get into the Mediterranean diet. I'm not more in favor of the Mediterranean over other bodies of water. I certainly don't want to give the waters off the coast of Norway a complex. After all, Norway is a very nice country and all. But I'm starting with the Mediterranean diet because so many specific preventative measures are covered by the general term Mediterranean diet. So I'll break this down into the ABCs. A. Omega-3 fatty acids. There's general agreement that omega-3 fatty acids more than likely are beneficial in Alzheimer's treatment and prevention, and also that omega-6 fatty acids and trans fatty acids could be harmful. Now, this may be somewhat controversial with some scientists because they want to weave in the whole medium-chain fatty acids theory. That's where coconut oil comes in, and I'll get to that soon. But again, omega-3s are a safe bet. A more believable controversy involves the mercury content of the big fish, as they say. Tuna and swordfish, although delicious and very popular in this country, do have a higher content of mercury because they eat little fish with little amounts of mercury, and it builds up in their large fish bodies. Mercury, as we all know, is bad for the brain. And the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland was proof of that. I rest my case. Although there's been a lot of talk among experts behind the whole coconut oil is good for you theories, there's no hard evidence to support that coconut oil can prevent or treat Alzheimer's disease. Coconut oil has medium-chain fatty acids, which people feel that the brain needs, and it does. But does it actually prevent Alzheimer's disease? They haven't been able to prove it yet. The reason people looked at coconut oil is because it's got a fatty acid called caprylic acid in it. The human body breaks down this acid into ketones. A similar protein is being used as a drug to treat Alzheimer's disease. So researchers thought, oh, coconut oil is a cheaper alternative to this drug. But again, the research studies haven't proven it. Oh my God, I am repeating myself. Where's my saffron? Okay, still under the Mediterranean diet, let's go with B, anti-inflammatory foods and ingredients. This is a no-brainer. Sorry, I just can't stop myself with the puns. You'll see a lot of berries mentioned when people talk about anti-inflammatory foods. So berries, and more berries. Wild blueberries in particular have something called anthocyanins in it. You don't have to know what that is, just that it's a good thing. Something called malvidin is a specific type of anthocyanin, and it is a plant pigment. So guess what? It's found in blueberries, blackberries, cranberries, and red grapes. These berries have been proven in studies to slow down changes in motor skills in Parkinson's disease. So the theory is, if it can help people with Parkinson's disease, it could very well help people with Alzheimer's. I think that's a pretty good bet. So anti-inflammatory equals good. C. Eat a diet rich in folic acid or folate. By the way, that's basically the same thing, just one's the acidic form. Vegetables, without question, are your best form of folic acid, but also beans or legumes, as I like to say. Taking a folic acid pill is not as good as the dietary form of the vitamin. If you're not a salad person in January, and I hear you there, you may want to try to get your veggies in other forms. For example, making a dip with roasted pepper hummus. I've got a recipe for that, and I'll stick a link to it in the show notes. If you want suggestions for recipes that contain folic acid, just contact me on my contact page. I'll put a link in the show notes, and I'll send you a bunch of recipes. By the way, it's healingoutsidethebox.com/contact-us. Letter D. The Mediterranean diet is naturally low in the amino acid homocysteine. This amino acid shows up more in red meat, chicken, and fish. There was a 2002 study published in the New England Journal of Medicine indicating that people who have high blood levels of homocysteine had twice the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. But once again, the cheesesteak sub people would have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. So we're talking about the same risk factors. And it just so happens that folic acid and other B vitamins help to reduce homocysteine levels. Because there's so many things involved, it's difficult to establish cause and effect, but reducing animal protein and eating more plant foods seems like a good idea and may help to prevent or alleviate symptoms of Alzheimer's. Now let's move on from the Mediterranean and talk about other food ingredients. Number 2, turmeric. This is a favorite of mine because it comes as a surprise to people. Naturally occurring herbs and spices may actually work better than chemical drugs. Can I get another amen? Amen! In fact, there is mounting clinical evidence that turmeric might help prevent the brain from the onset as well as the progression of Alzheimer's. Curcumin is the active ingredient, and you'll hear those two words, turmeric and curcumin, interchanged. It only takes a small amount of turmeric, perhaps a teaspoon a day, to bring on dramatic improvements in patients who already had Alzheimer's. That's some cool stuff right there. Number 3, as much as possible, seek alternatives for high fructose corn syrup and refined sugar. Now, if you want to use sugar for cooking, they do have organic sugar just about everywhere, and it's not that expensive. A sweetener made from monk fruit can be found just about anywhere as well. I'll give you the link in the show notes where you can get it on Amazon. It would be pretty near impossible to eliminate all sugar, but I think most of us agree that Americans can do with a little less of the stuff. Number 4, replace trans or hydrogenated fatty acids, like those in margarine, with primarily monounsaturated fatty acids. You can also substitute with organic polyunsaturated oils. You can find the monos in olive oil, avocados, coconut oil and coconut milk, nuts and nut oils, seeds like sunflower seeds, and organic eggs. Number 5, saffron. I know what you're thinking. Saffron is expensive, and it is. But it's worth looking into, according to some scientists. In one study done in Greece around 2015, the results were that saffron worked just as well as the leading drug in reducing the progression of Alzheimer's. They gave people 30 milligrams of saffron daily for over 16 weeks. The same 16 weeks, they gave patients the leading drug, and there was literally no difference. In addition, most drugs have side effects, and this one's no different. There was nausea and vomiting in the drug group and nothing of the kind in the saffron group. To look at the saffron thing, let's go back and review the process of Alzheimer's disease. The disease can start as early as 10 to 20 years before symptoms appear. The disease is caused by the accumulation of two types of abnormal structures called amyloid plaques and tau tangles. The red pigment in saffron, called crocin, seems to reduce the clumping of amyloid plaques. This same crocin in saffron seems to be able to inhibit the formation of these tau tangles as well. There was another study done in Iran and published in a journal called Human Psychopharmacology. So you know they're into drugs. Here's what they said. Saffron did just as well as the drug that is used to treat Alzheimer's disease, with no side effects that were seen with the drug treatment. And yes, saffron grows in Iran. We get that. But the study has been repeated. Number 6, fix the leaky gut. I've done a couple of podcasts on leaky gut, so I won't go into a lot of detail here. I'll see if I can find them and put links in the show notes. But let's plug up those leaks, people. If you're serious about wanting to patch up the leaks, you may want to think about eating non-GMO and organic as well, especially when it comes to wheat and produce. Also, experts will recommend eating fermented foods like yogurt and similar products, or taking a high-quality probiotic supplement. Number 7, keep normal levels of magnesium. There has been some research that has looked at this and has shown when people have low levels of magnesium and increase their levels, there is a decrease in Alzheimer's symptoms. This is another instance where you need to eat the real food that contains the magnesium over taking a supplement. Magnesium from pills doesn't seem to cross the blood-brain barrier for some reason. Food sources of magnesium? What are you thinking? I'm thinking cashews, peanuts, almonds, black beans, pumpkin seeds, avocados, and spinach. Sounds like the Mediterranean diet to me. Number 8. Since we're on vitamins and minerals, normal levels of vitamin D seem to be important as well. There appears to be a link between Alzheimer's disease showing up and abnormally low levels of vitamin D. I'm not sure how much this may relate to dietary habits or to perhaps measuring vitamin D levels in nursing home patients that are there with Alzheimer's. These nursing home patients may eat poorly and don't get enough exposure to the sun. So I'm just the messenger here. I'm not sure what's going on. But I've been told that 10 minutes of sunshine is plenty to get enough vitamin D. So I'm passing that along as well. Vitamin D seems to help your immune system and may be in small part an anti-inflammatory agent as well. Number 9, coenzyme Q10. Now, some people are claiming that this might prevent or slow down the symptoms of Alzheimer's, but there is no solid evidence yet. Coenzyme Q10 is, as it says, an enzyme and an antioxidant, but again, there's no clear evidence for a positive link with Alzheimer's disease. Number 10, coral calcium. In a word, no. Some people are suggesting that it helps, but it appears that these people are incorrect. And this is one of those treatments that might cause harm if you try it. Now, I've gotten pretty long-winded today, so I think I'll stop there. And next week, I'll go into the non-food ways that you can help to prevent or slow down both the Alzheimer's process and the aging process. That's all I have for you today. Be well and stay tuned next week for another episode of Healing Outside the Box.